to your walls. Use me up until I fall. I'm confused, always lose. I refuse your spread, always hold you to my head.
Aloha and welcome to Hawaii for Volume 2 of Stand-Up Paddle Surfing Hawaiian Style. By now we are assuming that you either know the basics or that you've watched Volume 1 of Stand-Up Paddle Surfing. So in this edition we're going to take you all the way from riding basic waves to high-end maneuvers. So come on, let's get going. The sport of stand-up paddle surfing is rapidly growing as riders can now be seen riding larger waves and pushing the limits like never before. We've got paddle boarders cruising down the rivers. And in case there's no waves, you can always generate your own. Board designs are changing daily and range from your classic longboard style to short, stubby trick boards. But one thing remains the same, and that is, there's nothing like riding a long fun wave on a stand-up paddleboard. So let's get out there and pick up from where we left off in Volume 1 and catch some waves. Paddling out through the surf can initially be a little tricky, so apply the same learning techniques from Volume 1 by placing the paddle blade under your chest and stroke out to flat water. Once you're comfortable, jump up and start paddling out to the back line behind the break. At all times, remember that safety is away from other surfers and beach users. Now when learning, there's really no wrong or right method, so long as you're having fun and no one's endangered. But our intentions with this series is to get you up and riding in what we feel to be the safest and best method. Yes, you can sit, and some people like to kneel, but ultimately, standing up is what the sport is all about. Okay, let's recap from Volume 1. As the swell approaches, remain standing in the parallel position and paddle with strong, even strokes until you feel the swell carrying your board forward. It's important to hold the top of your handle or T-bar for extra paddling power. To keep your board traveling in the right direction, at times it might be necessary to swap sides with your paddle to redirect your board. As you feel the swell carrying you forward, switch to a regular surf stance. Try having your paddle on the side of the board that you're turning towards, and if necessary, give short strokes to maintain speed on the wave and to keep ahead of the white water. In the early stages, catching waves can be tricky to say the least, so the correct learning conditions will play a major part in your learning process. Once again, refer to Volume 1 for in-depth instructions on initial riding techniques. Key points. Standing in the parallel position, give strong, even strokes and paddle hard to build momentum. As the swell carries you forward, prepare to switch to a regular surf stance. Remember to keep your weight on your back leg, bend your knees and use your paddle to stabilize or to gain speed. Now, steering stand-up paddleboards requires a certain level of skill due to the added length and extra width. Feet position, pressure, and shifting your back foot from rail to rail will ultimately determine the direction of your board. So once you're up and riding on a wave, practice shifting your weight from rail to rail to feel the response of your board. The more pressure, the more the board will react. Okay, right now let's take a break and get some pro tips.
Another one of the most important things to remember when stand-up paddle surfing is how important the paddle is as a tool. Not only is it used for catching the wave, but it should be used properly for turning, supporting yourself in the waves. Many times you see people just have it on their shoulder or just holding it like this. This is as important as the fins on your board and should be used like that. So let's start out talking about how we use this paddle after we catch the wave for balancing purposes. What you do is whenever you lay the paddle down on the water, you should always put it on the backside face of the paddle. This is to utilize the fact that you want to position the paddle as a brace, almost like a third leg. You can use it like this to support yourself. The blade needs to be slightly flared up so that it'll fade across the water, and you can add pressure or release pressure as you need it across the surface of the water to give you support. So let's say you took off on a wave and you're feeling a little unbalanced because of the wind. First thing you should do is flare out your blade and set it in the water for support and let it skim across the water, and you can use it as your support leg, okay, or an outrigger for that matter. Let's say you get hit by the white water and you're on your way in and you're trying to just ride it out. Again, use that paddle as your support tool. 3 important tips to remember is the paddle is a tool. It's used for stability and for turning ability. Number 2, flare the blade out when you drag it across the water, utilizing the logo surface of the blade while you flare the front edge out. You can compress as you need for support. The third thing is bend your knees. As you bend your knees, you'll get more stability and be able to use your hips a lot more to gain your balance. So let's move on to some more tips.
Don't be a hog, you know, going out in the water, you know, take a few, give a lot.
Etiquette of surfing is the most important thing. You know, having respect for each other and yourself out in the lineup.
Respect the locals, you know, respect the people, respect the water, you know, and it's, again, all about, you know, respect.
Don't assume that they know where you're at, you know. Respect the zone or where the people's at out in the water. Give them a leeway. You know, the ocean is like a highway, you know. People will go in and people will go out, and they go sideways and they go up and they go down. So, you know, understand, you know, that give people the space that, you know, is respectful. Respect the people in their own, you know, local zones or local spots. You know, don't just paddle out there and act like a local or assume that, you know, everything's all right, you know. Have respect, you know, find someplace that is non-utilized, you know. Have fun in other areas where there is no one out. You know, again, just have respect for people, give them their space.
Okay, so you're ready to catch some waves. First thing to remember is once again to stay away from all other surfers and if possible, paddle around the surf break. If your local surf spot has limited waves or space, ensure that you stay to either side and away from surfers. This is especially important in the early learning stages. Remember that the same rules of surfing apply, and that is, the surfer up and riding closest to the breaking part of the wave has the right of way. As you improve, or if for some reason you live in a very crowded area where you don't have a designated paddle spot, ask the local surfers if you can share their break with them, and if they agree, move on and stay to the side of them. Use your added height above the water to point out waves to surfers. Be a friend at all times. At all costs, try stay away from surfers when learning. But what happens if you end up on the same wave? In this example, you see Dylan on the stand-up paddleboard, immediately kicking out of the wave and letting the surfer continue on the ride. If you notice early enough that someone else has the right of way, a good method is to quickly sit down on the back of your board, hit the brakes, and allow the other rider to continue on. As a general rule of thumb, To avoid conflicts, always give surfers the right of way. The most important thing, as Brian said earlier, is to respect others, share the ocean, and to get out there and have fun.
It gives you more leverage, you can see the sets better, and as the boards get smaller and more gunny, it actually in certain open face ways is superior to conventional surfing. You can go faster, you get more leverage, you can come screaming off the bottom and lean on your paddle. And so there's, especially in offshore reefs and cloud breaks like we have here in Hawaii, there's a lot of potential.
Getting out through the surf can be one of the most challenging aspects of stand-up paddleboarding and requires lots of practice. Once again, apply earlier learning techniques by placing the blade under your chest and paddle out in a prone lying down position. Ensure that you approach the wave straight on. Heading out at an angle will cause the wave to knock your board and take you on an unexpected ride. So ensure that the nose of your board is aimed straight out into the wave face. The larger the wave, the more important it will be to attack the wave head on. Some riders prefer to kneel paddling out, but ultimately we suggest learning to stand and paddle all the way out. Now, if the wave is small enough, paddle hard towards it, pointing the nose of your board directly into the white water. As the wave passes under you, bend your knees slightly and use your paddle to stabilize and regain your balance. Here is another option in getting over waves. Give strong strokes, and as the wave approaches, shift one foot towards the tail of the board, go into a surf stance and put pressure on your back leg in order to lift the nose of your board. Once again, use the paddle to stabilize yourself. An advanced tip on climbing over white water is to apply the same techniques, but as you go over the wave and the white water turbulence starts, drop your back knee onto the board. At this stage, stretch your paddle out across the water to maintain balance and a lower center of gravity. Let's take a look from some different angles. Key points: paddle hard towards a wave. Shift one foot to the back of the board to lift the nose. Drop your back knee onto the board. As soon as the wave has passed you by and you feel stable, push up and return to a parallel paddling position.
If I can give anybody some pointers on starting, the most key thing would be is to stay somewhere where the water's calm and nobody else is around that you can hurt anyone. Just for the fact that we're using so much equipment, and if you're on a 12-foot board, that means you probably got a 12-foot leash or a 10-foot leash, and that gives you about a 20 or 30-foot kill zone, and that can get pretty dangerous. So I think the best advice I can give to anybody that's starting is to just, be safe and practice it. It's just a matter of practicing. It's like learning how to surf all over again. It's like learning how to walk again. 12-foot board, just get the right equipment. Don't try and do it on a surfboard. There's boards out there that are designed for stand-up, and that's what you need to get. You got to get the right equipment.
Another one of the most important tips to use in stand-up paddle surfing that we're going to talk about now is the bottom turn and utilizing the paddle and where your foot placement go for the bottom turn. Now, setting up a bottom turn forehand is what we're going to do. I kind of set it up on the beach here. It's a little bit like a wave. The way that we set it up is it's important that your foot is far enough back, and it should be positioned over the side fin is where you should position your back foot. A lot of people stand a little bit too far forward. If you stand too far forward, the board's not going to release and the rail's not going to release on you. So what you want to do in doing a bottom turn forehand is what I do is I'll take off on the wave, make the drop. The first thing I do is I shift my foot over here to right over the side fin. In this case, it would be the left side fin. And utilizing the paddle, I flare out the front edge, just like we showed earlier on the stability. I flare out the front edge, so I use the paddle as stability, and I lay the board out on its rail. So you want to lift the board out using this paddle as your stability. If you'll look on a lot of the videos or a lot of the shots, you'll see that when this paddle is down, there's a lot of bend that goes on because there's so much force being placed as you drive this turn. 4 important things to remember. We take off, we step back to release the nose, move the left foot over the side fin, place the paddle in the water, flaring out the front edge of the blade, and lay your weight on the paddle to support and complete your turn. The harder and longer that you lay the paddle down and support on it, the faster your turn will be. Another key important and advanced stand-up paddle surfing tips that you want to learn is the backside bottom turn and how you use the paddle and position your feet. It's very similar to the front side bottom turn where we're utilizing the paddle. On the logo side, we're flaring out the front edge and laying back on it. So on the backside bottom turn, we'll take off on the wave, and the first thing we'll do is step back and put your back foot over the side fin. And what I normally do is I bend my back knee, lay back on the paddle, flaring up the front edge of the paddle, and lay the rail into the turn. The longer that you lay back on your paddle and you hold that rail, the quicker the turn will go. So let's go through the key points again. Backside bottom turn. Step back, bending your knee over the back fin, flare the blade out, lay back on it, bending your knee like this, laying the rail of the board down. The longer you hold it, the quicker the turn will be. Let's go to another tip.
Titus just got off the super long flight from France. He's just on fire. Something's wrong with that guy. He's like freakishly abnormal.
My name's Titus Kinimaka. I've been surfing for 50 years and stand-up surfing about 4 years. It's really a lot of fun because the amount of waves you can get, you know, and the workout you get in a short amount of time. The more work you put into it, the better workout you get. So, you know, it's all around really fun.
Paddle tricks are for kids. Spinning the paddle, I mean, you know, you can spin the paddle around your neck, around your shoulders, around your back, or your legs. I mean, you know, you can use the paddle through your own mind's creation. You know, it's to each their own, and it's kind of an art form. But always remember that paddle can be a hazard to yourself or someone else. Watch where you're spinning the paddle. Don't hit yourself. Don't hit anyone else. Those topics, I think, are the most important topics. And then other than that, have fun creating your own paddle tricks.
West Coast syntax, underground hip-hop artist will be the hardest.
Here we are at Maliko Gulch, ready to do some distance paddling, getting ready for a coast run. Come check it out. You know, I've been doing paddleboard racing for about 25 years. Always enjoyed, being out in the ocean and the fitness benefits, and starting to do stand-up, it's just so much more enjoyable. I just call it way more civilized. You're up higher, you're standing upright, you have a better view. You know, when you're first getting into the downwinders, you can pretty much use anything. I mean, if you're not racing, it's not that critical to get down there fast. Something like this goes down the coast really nice. It's very enjoyable. You know, anything over 12 feet, you want pretty wide, so it's stable and you can get the hang of it. But then once you want to go faster, you need something a little bit narrower, maybe 28, 29 inches wide. The trick with a downwind run is to try to stay on the glides, and sometimes the glides will go left, sometimes they'll go right. So if I'm on a glide and it's going left and starts to die off and I see it going the other way, you just try to stay on the glides and go from one glide to the other. The normal, coast runs that we do here on Maui I go about 7 miles on average run. A cell phone is a real good idea, having a little case. A lot of the guys are using hydration packs. You can put a fanny pack on and take, more safety equipment if you need, but my rule is I always paddle with a couple other people. Don't usually go alone, and don't go too far out. Be safe and, watch out for each other. I think a leash is a real good idea to have on a stand-up run. Just these boards, when it's windy, if you fall off, the board can get caught in the wind and gone. It can go faster than you can ever swim. So definitely a leash should be standard equipment. If I'm on the race board, I pretty much want to avoid the surf breaks and stay out just outside of them, so I don't have to encounter the breaks. But some days I'll go on the smaller board. I'll go on like a 12-foot board and try to capitalize on all the waves. There's like 6 or 7 different reefs down the coast here, and I'll just stop and ride a wave at each place all the way down and really enjoy it. For the racing part of it and being on the race board, or actually any of them, I'm always trying to stay on a swell. I'm trying to capitalize on as many swells as I can. And you get the big swells running, and then you get like a little, call it the aftershock. A lot of times you can get right on the back of the biggest swells and ride along as far as you can. I want to try to stay on those the maximum time that I can. And while I'm on those, I'll keep paddling a little bit just to kind of keep my momentum, and then as it starts to die out, then I'm trying to already look for the next one, and I'm trying to use the speed that off the swell I just rode to help me get into the next one. And sometimes I'll connect like 5 or 6 in a row. It's just, you can connect it, it's just dying out, you connect into another one. And the more you can connect them, the quicker you can get down the coast. So if I'm racing, I'm gonna try to be on the glide as much as I can. And my mindset is if I miss one, there's one that I could have had, the other guys I'm racing are probably gonna get it. So you wanna really get every wave that you can possibly catch, you want to catch it. And a lot of times I'll move up 3-4 feet up the board and just paddle hard and just try to get into it, and then you run back. And there's a lot of surfing technique involved, but you don't have to be a great surfer to do it. It's just moving forward, moving back, keeping your balance, and trying to stay on the glide. And enjoy yourself, have a great workout, and enjoy the ocean.
Another tip for advanced stand-up surfing would be the off the lip. And this is interesting. I have my certain way that I do it, and a lot of people do it, where we switch the paddle handle. And that is, we'll come off the bottom, we'll drive up to the top, and as we come to the top of the lip, we switch the paddle and come off the top of the lip, getting the paddle in the water by switching the paddle to a different hand. Then there's another way that Brian's nephew Nolan, which I call the Nolan off the lip, would be, he comes off the bottom, and when he comes off the top lip, what he does is he bends his knee and turns his whole body and comes off the top this way and uses the paddle as his pivot point, but crosses over, keeping the paddle in the same hand. So before we move on to this next tip, I'd like Dave Parmenter to give you his views on how this move is done. He's one of the masters.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at the top turn. Now that you've learned how to do a good bottom turn and you're racing towards the shoulder or the lip with all that speed, there's a couple different techniques to do a top turn. One of the most basic is after you come off your bottom turn, you're leaning forward, you switch back, you plant the paddle behind you, almost like you're going to do a layback, and you use that as a fulcrum point and a lever to whip the board around. So you just start snapping the board off the top, put the weight on your back foot, and you can kind of whip with the paddle. Planting the paddle, looking up at the lip, and then coming back, planting your weight back, and instead of your front foot taking a lot of the weight, it's the paddle and your rear leg are kind of like the two main bipeds. And then you just do almost like a layback snap, and you can almost push with the paddle to whip the board around. Another way is to come up and plant it like this and just do like a really quick whip, like that. Like you can actually plant the paddle on top of the lip if it's not a real critical lip, and if it's a bit of a fat face, and plant it like this, and just by doing this you'll whip the nose around, and then you can go back and lean like this and pull it into a longer sustained carve that sets you up towards either a SUP rebound or a SUP floater. So the key thing is to remember the transition from the bottom turn, which is paddle face down, to going behind you into like a layback position, and then the paddle changes the angle. The blade's still in the same basic orientation, and it's learning to lean on that and do like a long carve or a short snap. Now we're going to take a look at a particularly tricky technique, which is a backside off lip or re-entry. Most surfers have a hard time on conventional boards with it, and on a big board with a paddle it's even a little bit more of a tricky endeavor. But there's two schools of thought on this, so we'll show you both, demonstrate both. One is as you drop down the face, you're doing a bottom turn. Now as you're heading up the lip, you have to switch the paddle to this side, plant your weight on your back foot, and then crank the board up and over, whether there's a SUP ball or a lip or whatever. And that's one way to do it. Another way is to do your bottom turn. Instead of the paddle in a layback position, you bring it like this, and as you're going left and you're looking up at the lip, it's on this side. Whip it off the top and follow through using your paddle as a pivot point. Now that's a pretty tricky technique because you have to swing the paddle over the board, switching hands right at the most critical moment. You're backside on a big board. You're already up in the lip. These things are hard to control. The lip's throwing like lots of little flutters at you. So that's a pretty advanced move. There's only a few people that I've seen do it very effectively. It's pretty much a lot easier to do the other paddle technique where you're backside like this to front side. Backside bottom turn off the top. That's probably the most important thing to keep in mind at that point for backside.
Let's talk about the aspect of wiping out. So, in wiping out, it's not being reactive to the wipeout, but really being proactive to the wipeout, meaning in preparation. Preparing yourself to survive and preparing yourself to surf. A lot of people can surf, not many people can survive. The most important thing to remember is to utilize that paddle as a tool. The other important thing is not to panic, to make an educated decision, not an emotional decision. And again, it's all in preparation and preparing for the wipeout, training for the wipeout. Well, if it happens, it's when it happens, when you wipe out, you want to be prepared. So it's all about preparation.
When you wipe out and you fall on a big wave, a lot of people ask, what do you do with the paddle? Here's an incredible sequence of Brian getting wiped out on a big wave, actually using the paddle like a rudder of an airplane to drive himself and fly himself to the surface while he's getting pulled by his board. Notice the key points. His feet are facing towards his board. He's laid out longwise, letting the board pull him. His paddle is directed behind him with the direction of the blade to drive him to the surface, and he's stretched out. The more stretched out you are, the faster you'll fly your body to the surface. Just let the board pull you and let the board do the work for you. What you want to do on your wipeouts is don't fight it, use it. Another way you can use the paddle as a tool is take your paddle, put it on your chest, take one leg and wrap it around it like this. As you swim, your blade will help you plane up over the surface and swim faster. And if you happen to catch a wave, it's great for body surfing.
The wipeout is a part of the stand-up paddle adventure, so get ready to hold your breath and don't panic. One of the many options is to place both legs over the sides of your board and with your back facing the oncoming wave, prepare for impact. With one hand holding the paddle and the other on the board, lean back slightly to absorb the wave's thrust. As a wave passes you by, use the paddle to redirect your board, jump up and paddle to safety. The larger the wave, the more you'll need to lean back to counteract the force. If the wave is larger, try the following technique. As the wave approaches, ensure that the nose of your board is facing towards the shore. If you're not already in the water, climb off the board, holding your paddle in one hand and your other arm over the back of the board. Take a deep breath and prepare to go under and allow the wave to pass over you. Once you've regained control, paddle around and away from the impact zone. Sometimes things happen really quick, So remain calm, get a good grip on your paddle, and get ready to hold your breath. After the wave has passed over you, quickly pull on the leash to retrieve your board. Climb back on your board and paddle away as quick as possible. Once you're in smooth water, jump up and paddle out to safety.
Now we're going to take a look at your basic roundhouse cutback on a stand-up surfboard. It's pretty much the same as conventional surfing, except for you get to lean on your paddle. And there's two schools of thought for this. The first one that Brian Kailana developed about 5 years ago is the layback style, where as you go to cut back, you put the paddle behind you, brace it like a blade, almost like a fin in the water, and lean. And you can either do short snaps like this by whipping it, or you can lean on it longer and go back towards the soup ball. And when you go back and come off the soup, then you plant the paddle like this, and then the board goes up and over the soup. The second method is better for slopier or mushier waves where you have a lot more room. It doesn't work as good when you're really in tight with a curl. Is as you cut back, going left, you cut back, you plant your paddle like this and lean, and then as you go off the soup or change rails, you come back like this. Now obviously that doesn't work too good in a really tight curl when you have to bank up into a thing and bank, because you have to switch the paddles right at a critical part. So most of the stuff that you're going to see in a tight pocket or a holler wave is going to be leaning on the layback off the top. It's just that easy. It's just this motion rather than having to go all the way across the board, switch hands and plant. There's just not enough time to get a big board off the soup like that. So that technique is better suited for your Waikiki or San Onofre style waves. So remember, there's two schools of thought. There's hybrids of both of those. You can mess around with them both, but basically for the more progressive style, it's a really tight layback type of snap that lets you switch paddles really quick to go off the top when you bank off the soup, whether you're doing like a re-entry off the soup or a floater off the soup to come back in your roundhouse.
Riding backhand has to be one of the funnest aspects of stand-up paddleboarding. Whether it's cruising and styling backhand at Makaha or Waikiki, riding with your back towards a wave is an essential part of mastering this unique sport and preparing for the different backhand maneuvers discussed in this series. The larger the wave, the more critical correct positioning on your board will be. Once again, correct use of your paddle is key to effectively riding backhand with style, so use your paddle for added control. Placing the blade on the wave face at different angles, one can adjust your speed accordingly. Depending on the type of wave that you're riding, adjust your backhand stance and, if necessary, keep those knees bent. As you improve, try using your paddle to perform laybacks. You can try leaning on your paddle to alter your speed and direction. To gain more speed backhand, shift your weight forward to your front leg. To slow down or stall, shift your weight to your back leg. Key points: use your paddle for added control. Keep those knees bent. Shift your weight forward to gain speed and backwards to stall or slow down.
Right now you have the basic fundamentals down. Let's take it a notch further and look at cross-stepping. Cross-stepping is just basically a longboard traditional style of moving up and down the board that started way back in the early days and really is the standard for how the good longboarders move on a large board. It's one of the basic things that you want to learn to do from the beginning on your stand-up paddleboard. It will really add style to your surfing, and the flow that it creates during the movement is a nice artistic look to the sport. Once you decide that you need to move further up to the nose, maybe to nose ride or in the middle of the board to get some trim, you want to start out by making your cross step forward. Once you get to the place you want to be on your board and it's time that you need to move back, maybe to make a turn or to, because the wave's jacked up a little bit and you need to be farther back on the board, you want to cross step back. So you're up and riding, the first way to initiate the move is to take the back foot and bring it across to your front foot. And then you basically just continue that movement up to the area of the board that you'd like to be upon. Once you've cross stepped to the place you want to be on the board, now you're looking at the wave and determining what type of move you'd like to do. If you want to go more forward to hang 10, or maybe you need to get back to get a cut back. Maybe the wave is jacking up and you need to get to the back part of the board. You got to kind of look at what the flow of the wave is doing and determining if you want to go forward or back at that point. But when you move along the board, you want to do it forwards and backwards cross-stepping. Sometimes you're cross-stepping forward onto the nose and using the paddle to keep a little momentum while you're sitting up on the nose. You'll figure it out as you go along the different tricks to use your paddle during the process of riding the wave. Sometimes when you're on the front of the board and your nose starts to sink, that's basically a time where you need to move backwards so that you get back into a more of a middle trim on the board. This can be happening because the wave's flattened out, you don't have enough speed. The thing that you want to find on stand-up paddle boards is movement on the board. You really need to learn to get up into the right trim, get back, It's kind of this movement forward and back depending on what you want to do on the wave. And the thing you don't want to do is shuffle around and hack your way around the board. You want to, have some style in what you're doing, and that style for movement on the board is cross-stepping. I mean, what you want to do is you want to work on your cross-stepping, work on moving forward, work on moving back, and then you want to link it into a couple different moves. So you'd maybe start out with a nice fading bottom turn, and you're going to set yourself up onto the wave. You're going to cross step up to the nose, hang 5, hang 10, get a little nose ride, and then cross step all the way back to the tail and just nail a nice drop knee turn and go back into your cross step. Work on the cross step, work on the drop knee, get out there, fall off a bunch, have a lot of success. You'll start looking real stylish and it'll be lots of fun.
We had a great opportunity. We got invited down to Tahiti with Brian and Raimana and our partner Mike Fox to join them on a 110-foot sailboat in the Tuamotus. Let's go down and check it out.
Catch your raindrops with your soul. Climb the walls, see me fly. Lights up in the sky, flowers grow in orange snow. Take another night, watch it go. Guiding hands, show the way. Can I find the words to say? Shed the mask, now we see the truth. Close your eyes, open up your mind. Take a ride, so tripping. Close your eyes, open up your mind. Oh, so it's the way it is, the way it should be. Oh, we laughed until we
I was in the barrel and my board went like this and then came back.
Close your eyes, open up your mind. Take a ride, so tripping. Ride the wave, let it fill you up. Take a ride, so tripping. Close your eyes, open up your mind. Oh, so tripping. Ride the wave, let it fill you up. Take a ride, so trip, it's the way it is, the way, the way it should be, yeah, the way it should be.
name is Randall Morikawa, and I'm gonna teach you a few tips on nose riding. First of all, to set yourself up on good nose riding, you have to take off on the wave more parallel to the wave without a bottom turn. The reason why being is that you need the force of the wave and you have the right lineup going down the line. And when you get that enough speed, because when you have force, you have more balance on the nose. So when I got that balance on the nose, I can walk further and the board is totally balanced because there's water in the back of on the tail of the board. And you can feel the speed difference when it slows down. You kind of like a pearl. So when you start to pearl, the same way you went to the front, you start to walk back reverse. So it's basically a front walk and a back walk. And the best practice is for walking on a curb, walking up and down on a curb. Every day you practice that curb and you'll be a bit more experienced in that nose riding thing. It doesn't come overnight, it comes with practice, and the bigger the board, the better for you. You have more surface area to walk and back and forth, more balance. It's practice makes perfect. And the only way you get better, you have to fall. If you don't fall, you won't succeed because you won't learn the place that you fell off, what that place means. If the closer to the nose, you're gonna know that balance. The further back, you're gonna know the speed. So you gotta know the front 2 feet of the board. That's the most important part of nose riding. That front, from the nose back 2 feet. That shows the board how it works, if it's a true nose rider or what. Because each step that you make, it's a different balance on the board. So the further you go in the front, the board starts to wobble. So when you start to wobble, that means you don't have enough speed. You need that momentum and force to stop the board from wobbling, and then you have a greater flow of the board than how it goes down the line of the face. The longer you're on the nose, the funner it is. So you gotta find yourself what's comfortable for you, because I'm 190. So not everybody, if a guy is like 90 pounds, he'll be totally different. He can like basically spin around like a feather on the nose. But for me, I need balance. So that's the reason why when I'm looking at the wave, I always paying attention to my nose, the height of the wave, and my position of the wave. And where's the end, the shoulder, that's very important. Key point one, the first thing you have to do is line yourself up with the right wave. The second point, get that momentum so you got speed. The third thing, you need balance. The fourth thing, focus. The fifth thing is hang ten and walk back.
Let's talk about the topic of tube riding. In tube riding, whether you're going regular foot or goofy foot, front hand or back side, really depends. The paddle is an extension off of your body. Putting that paddle into that wave, you can create drag, or you can put the thing at the top of the wave and create speed. You can also paddle and create more speed. So there's a lot of different techniques in utilizing that paddle for tube riding. You can stand tall, you can go low center of gravity. It all depends on your ability and what you're comfortable in doing. Another thing in tube riding with your paddle is you can put your paddle behind your back. in tube riding, and you can use the butt of that paddle dragging in. It's like an extension off of your fist, but it's extended 6 foot out from you. So you can pull yourself tighter into that wave, that kind of thing. You can use that to stall, or you can switch the other one and use that as a foil to put your body closer to the wave. You know, get your center of gravity and edge a lot more into the wave. So in tube riding, the most important thing to remember is that your paddle is a tool.
Thank you.
And in conclusion, remember that the most important thing. Sorry, let's try it. The important thing to remember that the paddle is a tool when tube riding. Blank.
The first time we saw Leleo and Bonga surf, it was like seeing other guys on twin fins for the first time and realizing that, you know, how far you could push it. And, you know, that was probably the catalyst of the whole thing, was those ability of all those guys coming together, like here at Macaw and Buffalo's Meat and the Makahiki, and pushing each other, and all of us kind of, you know, in unspoken terms agreeing that this was a whole new way of high performance surfing, and we look at it not as an extension of longboarding, but more of an extension of our shortboarding.
Aloha, this National Weather Service with the noontime Hawaiian waters forecast at 100 nautical miles. The forecast for the channels between the islands for this afternoon and tonight. There's a strong high out of the north-northwest of the island, which is slowly moving to the east. Seas 18 to 22 feet.
Topic of big wave surfing, stand-up paddling. A lot of it has to do in, again, preparation, breath-holding exercise. It's more of learning how to survive when in surf, training for the wipeouts, having the right equipment, not having too small of a board to penetrate the wave. You want speed, you want the right paddle paddling to these waves. You don't want to be hesitant. You don't want to go out there and not knowing what you're going to do. There's a bigger risk involved. Bigger cost involved. So again, you want to prepare. You should have a lot of water time paddling in small surf, medium surf, and work your way up to big surf. I don't think anyone in that stage of an advanced or an expert level should be out in big surf with a giant board and a paddle. They should learn all the different techniques of surviving, of getting to the surface, of knowing what to do with the paddle, and knowing how to drag with the giant surfboard. I think that's the biggest thing. The surfing part is all about enjoying, it's all about holding your line, it's all about, you know, knowing the break. In big wave surfing, it's the same thing that applies in big wave surfing without a paddle. I think that anyone that does surf big waves and stand-up paddling should have a lot of waves in regular surfing, just surfing giant waves. They should have that under their belt. They shouldn't be a beginner out in the surf playing with that kind of toy.
Tell me.
The most important thing to remember about big waves and stand-up paddle surfing is that you want to prepare, you want to make sure that you can hold your breath, you want to be able to survive. That is the most important thing in stand-up paddle surfing in big waves. Surfing is the fun part for me in big waves. It's the exciting part. It shouldn't be a scary part. If you're afraid or scared, you shouldn't be out. That is the most important thing.
tell me, tell me, tell me, I am not your enemy. Tell me, tell me.
Well everyone, we hope that those tips helped you out, and thanks so much for watching Volume 2 of Stand-Up Paddle Surfing Hawaiian Style. The biggest thing is to get out there and practice, because practice makes perfect. Remember to keep it safe, always have fun, and aloha.
Slipping hands tapped to the beat of the street, the back sweating hard, sticking to the seat. Got the sublime bumping on the stereo, but my head's still thumping from the night before. But that's okay, that's okay. Another day on its way.
Right now we're going to touch on some of the aspects of stand-up paddle surfing.
Well, the new swell's here and they're starting to show. Got the offshore winds and they're ready to blow. Pull out the board, wax up the stick. To the duct tape thing seem to do the trick. But that's okay, that's okay. Another day on its way. It's a beautiful day, yeah, it's a beautiful day, yeah. It's a beautiful day, yeah, it's a beautiful day, yeah. I battle out and dishes to pour it up again, it's a rip it up, I feel like a friend. Find another day, complain another day, cause everything melts away in the way. Everything melts away. Until you pull it up, I pull it up, give it what you got, it's a jack it up, I fill it up, take it to the next line, take it all the way, it's a beautiful day, take it all the way, yeah, it's a beautiful day, yeah, it's a beautiful day, yeah.
Which one are we doing? 3 key points?
Sprinting across the sand, burn off my feet. I hit the surfer running and don't miss a beat. Feel the wave grabbing and jump to my feet. A bottom calm turn like I never seen. 6 quick snaps and the floater inside. Kick out the back and nice breath and ride. But that's okay, that's okay.